You ever seen a man who thought he had it all? Fame, money, power, suddenly realize it could all disappear in one sentence? That's exactly what went down inside that courtroom today. Lil Durk, the man who built an empire out of street stories and survival, just heard a verdict that sent shockwaves through the entire industry. Cameras weren't supposed to be rolling, but when that final decision came down, let's just say, even his toughest supporters couldn't believe what they saw. Whispers started spreading minutes after the judge spoke, and the words, "It's over," hit harder than any diss track he's ever dropped. The look on Dirk's face? Pure disbelief. The courtroom fell silent. His team stood frozen. And for the first time, the world saw a side of Dirk nobody was ready for. But what really led to this? What did the judge see that changed everything? And why are insiders saying this could be the end of his career as we know it? Stay right here, because what just went down behind those closed doors will leave you speechless. Part 1. The entire courtroom was packed wall to wall, the tension so thick it felt like the air itself had stopped moving. You could hear every nervous breath, every creak of a chair, every whisper of a camera shutter trying to catch a glimpse of the moment that might end a legend. The reporters called it Judgment Day. Fans outside were chanting his name like a battle cry, but inside, it was graveyard silent. Lil Durk, real name Dirk Banks, walked in flanked by his lawyers, chin high, expression unreadable. The cameras caught it, that faint smirk he's famous for, the one that says, "I've been through worse." Except this time, everyone could feel something different. No lyrics, no beats, no entourage hyping him up, just cold marble floors, fluorescent lights, and a judge who looked like he'd been waiting years to deliver this decision. This wasn't just another legal hearing, this was a cultural event disguised as a trial. Every headline, every rumor, every tragedy that followed Dirk from Inglewood to Hollywood had somehow led to this moment. Prosecutors said it was about accountability. Fans said it was a setup. Insiders whispered that something bigger was moving behind the scenes, a coordinated takedown of one of hip-hop's most unbreakable figures. When the judge cleared his throat, the room froze. No one dared blink. Then came that one line that would replay across every social media feed for the next 48 hours. The sentence was delivered, short and sharp, and the reaction was instant. Dirk's shoulders dropped, his lawyer grabbed his arm, and then, for the first time since the world met him, Lil Durk's composure cracked. He pressed his hands to his face and breathed out hard, half a sigh, half a sob. The courtroom erupted in a low, stunned murmur. Outside, the news was already breaking. Final decision in Lil Durk case. Push notifications hit phones faster than the bailiff could call order. Within minutes, X, was melting down. Hashtag Free Durk trended in 30 countries. But the real chaos wasn't online. It was inside the courthouse hallways, where reporters swarmed anyone who'd ever been in Dirk's circle. What the cameras didn't catch, at least not yet, was the real story, the chain of events that built up to this explosion. Because this verdict didn't come out of nowhere. It was years in the making. Dirk wasn't just another rapper who made it out. He was the symbol of survival. Every lyric, every loss, every tear in his voice came from real pain. He buried friends, faced death threats, dodged indictments, and turned that trauma into platinum records. That kind of resilience doesn't just inspire fans, it terrifies enemies. Behind the scenes, there had always been whispers of federal eyes watching. Anonymous sources claimed that certain agencies were quietly building a file on Dirk's finances, his affiliates, even his tour routes. Nobody took it seriously until a mysterious PDF started circulating in private group chats about 2 weeks before the verdict. Titled, Project Midwest, Case Study Dirk Banks. The document looked official enough to scare anyone. Dozens of pages filled with blacked-out lines and coded references. Some claimed it contained text message transcripts between Durk's team and unnamed figures connected to prior incidents. Others said it was just an elaborate hoax. But when entertainment blogs got hold of it, it was too late. The damage was done. The narrative had already flipped. By the time Durk walked into that courtroom, he was already guilty in the court of public opinion. News anchors used phrases like pattern of behavior and escalating associations. Talk shows dissected his lyrics like they were classified confessions. And while his legal team begged the media to stop poisoning the case, the internet only dug deeper. Inside the courthouse, prosecutors leaned on spectacle as much as substance. They painted a picture of a superstar who blurred the line between art and reality until no one could tell which was which. They replayed grainy footage, showed photos, quoted lyrics. One of them even held up a printed tweet from 2019 as if it were Exhibit A. But Durk's attorney fought back with equal fire, calling the entire thing a media circus. You're sentencing a character, not a man. You're convicting a character created by the public, not the person standing before you. Still, the judge's expression never changed. He just kept flipping through papers, occasionally nodding, occasionally sighing. And when he finally looked up, you could tell his mind was already made up. When the decision dropped, Durk's family gasped. His mother covered her mouth. A friend in the second row started shouting before being escorted out. The entire scene was chaos, restrained by decorum. Then came the longest 5 minutes of Durk's life. The paperwork, the whispers between the judge and clerk, the cold formality of procedure. Finally, the gavel hit wood. It was done. As Durk stood, he looked out at the rows of cameras pointed at him like weapons. For once, he didn't hide behind shades. His eyes were glassy, distant, like he just watched the empire he built crumble in slow motion. He mouthed something to himself. No one knows what. Some say it was a prayer. Others think it was a name. But whatever it was, it carried the weight of a man realizing that money, fame, and followers can't silence a courtroom. When he walked out, escorted by security, the hallway outside exploded. Fans screamed his name, flashes went off, and one journalist yelled, "Durk, do you have anything to say to your supporters?" He didn't answer. He didn't even flinch. But according to one eyewitness, just before stepping into the black SUV waiting outside, Durk looked back over his shoulder at the courthouse doors, like he knew the story wasn't over yet. Like he knew someone, somewhere, had made sure this verdict happened exactly as planned. And maybe he was right. Because within hours, another leak hit the web. This time, a 30-second audio clip allegedly recorded inside the judge's chambers. The clip was muffled, hard to hear, but it sounded like two voices discussing pressure from upstairs. Whether real or fabricated, it reignited every conspiracy theory out there. People claimed Durk was the target of an industry-wide setup. Others said he'd crossed someone powerful. Whatever the truth, the narrative had shifted again. Now it wasn't just Lil Durk on trial, it was the system itself. As night fell, Durk's team released a short statement. "We will appeal. Truth always rises." But even his most loyal supporters could sense it. The damage was irreversible. The empire was cracking. Sponsors paused contracts, collaborators went silent, playlists quietly dropped his songs. And yet, amid all that chaos, something else was brewing, something darker, quieter, and far more dangerous than any verdict. Because if the whispers were true, that secret audio clip was only the beginning. And that's exactly where the next chapter begins. Part 2. The night the audio dropped, the internet went nuclear. Every social feed, every comment section, every trending tab was lit up with one name, Lil Durk. But this time, it wasn't about music or fame or beef. It was about justice, corruption, and the shadowy hands that seemed to be pulling the strings behind closed doors. The 30-second audio clip, supposedly recorded inside the judge's private chambers, spread like wildfire. You couldn't scroll 2 posts without seeing the words, "pressure from upstairs." Some heard the voice of a senior official. Others swore it was an industry executive. Within hours, hashtags like #DurkSetup and #JusticeForDurk started trending worldwide. Even people who had never listened to a single Lil Durk song were suddenly playing detective, slowing down the audio, running voice matching apps, and posting their findings on TikTok. A few independent creators went further, claiming to have access to the full recording, 30 minutes long. But mysteriously, those videos vanished within minutes of being uploaded. Copyright strikes, account bans, unexplained takedowns. The digital smoke trail was impossible to ignore. Then came the first insider. A man who identified himself only as Agent K appeared in a late-night Twitter space with nearly 40,000 listeners. His voice was disguised, distorted, and drenched in static, but his words were clear enough to send chills down spines. They didn't want Durk to win that case. He was never supposed to walk out free. There were calls made days before the verdict. Someone up top wanted an example made. He just didn't know he was the example. The space ended abruptly after 15 minutes. His account disappeared hours later. But by then, the damage was done. Screenshots of his statements spread across Reddit and Instagram. YouTubers, podcasters, and conspiracy threads exploded with theories. The music industry versus the streets narrative was officially born. Even major outlets had to acknowledge it. TMZ ran a cautious headline, "Was Lil Durk set up? Fans raise questions after audio leak." Rolling Stone called it a dangerous intersection of celebrity and suspicion. Meanwhile, Durk's team stayed silent, issuing no denials, no confirmations, just silence. And that silence, it spoke louder than any statement ever could, because behind the curtain, chaos was erupting. A source close to Durk's management allegedly leaked an email thread showing label executives arguing about damage control. One line stood out: "We cannot allow this to turn into a larger investigation." The sender's name was blurred, but that one sentence was enough to spark weeks of speculation. Fans started connecting dots that probably weren't there, but maybe they were. People pointed to how other artists tied to Durk's circle were suddenly quiet. Instagram stories deleted, tweets gone, even collaborations that were teased just days earlier were quietly shelved. It was as if the entire industry was scrubbing its fingerprints before the next shoe dropped. But that's not even the craziest part. A blogger named Keisha Renee, known for exposing industry secrets, uploaded a YouTube video claiming she had sources inside the courthouse itself. According to her, a clerk who was present during the verdict, said there were, quote, off-the-record discussions between the prosecution and a third party. Money changed hands, she said dramatically, staring straight into the camera, and it wasn't small money either. Within 12 hours, that video hit 1.2 million views. By the next morning, Keisha's channel was gone. No trace, just wiped. The more people tried to uncover, the darker it got. Every attempt to reveal what really happened led to missing accounts, broken links, and dead ends. And that's when the paranoia began to take over. Fans started to believe they were being watched. Commenters claimed their accounts were being flagged just for discussing the leak. Some swore that every time they mentioned the judge's name, their posts got hidden from search results. Whether it was algorithmic coincidence or something deeper, nobody could tell anymore. Meanwhile, Durk himself had vanished from the public eye. No Instagram lives, no tweets, no interviews, just silence. Until one night, 3 days after the leak, a post appeared on his official Instagram story. A black screen, no caption, just a single emoji, hourglass. The internet went insane. Every influencer with a mic was dissecting it. Was he counting down to an announcement, a tell-all, a diss track, or something bigger? Within hours, more sources began coming forward. One, allegedly a member of Durk's old inner circle, told an underground blog that Durk was putting together his own evidence, building a case against the people who orchestrated the takedown. Quote, "He's not done. He's about to flip this whole story on its head," the source said. That statement hit like gasoline on fire. Now, every corner of the internet had a theory. Some said the government wanted Durk to go down because his influence in the streets was too powerful. Others believed a rival label orchestrated the smear to stop his next album rollout. A few claimed it was all just Durk's team playing 4D chess, creating controversy to control the narrative. Whatever the truth, one thing was undeniable. The public no longer trusted what they were being told. Even Durk's rivals, usually quick to throw shade, stayed eerily quiet. No one wanted to be next. One anonymous rapper reportedly told a journalist, "They're watching everybody right now. That leak scared people at the top. You can feel it in every call, every deal, every meeting." Behind the scenes, Durk's lawyers were supposedly preparing an appeal, not just to overturn the verdict, but to expose what they called institutional interference. A fancy way of saying somebody cheated. The court, meanwhile, denied all claims of corruption. The judge refused interviews. The district office labeled the audio inauthentic. That the public wasn't buying it. The more they denied, the more people believed. By weekend, protests started outside the courthouse. Fans held up posters reading "Free Durk," "We want truth," and "No justice, no peace." Local news stations covered it like it was a political movement. And through it all, Durk's silence became louder and louder. That one hourglass emoji turned into a symbol, the countdown to something no one could predict. Then one night, just before midnight, an anonymous account with 0 followers uploaded a clip titled, "They Lied." It featured Durk sitting in a dimly lit room, hood up, eyes locked on the camera. He didn't say much, but every word hit like thunder. "They thought it was over, but I ain't done talking yet." The clip ended there. No location, no timestamp, no source. Within minutes, it was reposted everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, Reddit, YouTube. Millions watched, debated, analyzed every frame. Was it new? Was it real? Or was someone playing games with the biggest story in hip-hop? Nobody knew. But one thing was certain, whatever was coming next, it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because when truth becomes entertainment, and entertainment turns into war, the real game is just beginning. They said. Unconfirmed reports, they added. But the tone had changed. What once sounded like conspiracy now sounded like possibility. Meanwhile, Durk's fans turned the courtroom steps into a stage. Thousands gathered, holding up signs reading, "The truth will speak," and "Justice for Durk." Reporters filmed the scenes like it was a civil rights march. You could feel the tension, the faith, the anger, and the exhaustion all colliding in one chaotic wave. Then, the moment nobody saw coming. A high-definition video surfaced online showing Durk walking into the courthouse flanked by his attorneys. Cameras flashed like lightning. Questions shouted from every direction. "Durk, is it true? Did the judge take bribes? Do you have the tapes?" He didn't answer a single one. He just looked ahead, calm, almost detached, as if he had already accepted the storm. But if you looked closely, there was something else in his expression. Not fear, not anger, something deeper. Like a man who knew that telling the truth would cost him everything, but silence would cost him even more. Inside the courtroom, witnesses whispered about how emotional the session became. The new evidence was presented privately to the review board. Reporters were kept outside, but leaks started the very next day. Someone claimed to have seen visual proof, video footage allegedly confirming that discussions between the judge and third parties took place before the verdict. The words "camera evidence" started circulating
everywhere. And that's when the tone of the story changed forever. Because the moment people heard the words hidden camera, the floodgates opened. Every podcast, every media show, every online analyst wanted a piece of the story. Some called it the trial that exposed the industry. Others said it was the biggest judicial scandal in modern hip-hop history. But behind the headlines was something much more human. Witnesses inside the courtroom described Durk's reaction when the footage was mentioned. He reported they lowered his head, took a deep breath, and started to cry silently at the defense table. Not the tears of guilt, but the exhaustion of a man who'd been fighting the same war for too long. "He broke down, man," one clerk told a journalist later. It wasn't about fame or money at that point. You could tell he just wanted peace. He just wanted people to see the truth. Those tears, that raw emotion, became the image plastered across every social feed that day. Screenshots of Durk wiping his face flooded the internet. Fans flooded his comments with words of support, quoting scripture, posting hearts, praying emojis. Even people who had doubted him before started to change their tone. Meanwhile, inside the music industry, panic spread like wildfire. Executives called emergency meetings. PR departments went into crisis mode. Lawyers combed through old contracts, terrified that other artists might start speaking out next. This wasn't just about one rapper anymore. This was about power, influence, and what happens when someone decides not to play by the rules. And then
Reporters captured the moment he stepped outside. The sky was gray, rain falling lightly. He looked up, whispered something under his breath, maybe a prayer, and then walked down the courthouse steps, surrounded by fans chanting his name. Some say he smiled for the first time in months. Others say he just closed his eyes and let the rain wash everything away. That day will forever be remembered as the moment when truth finally cracked through the surface of silence. Durk didn't celebrate with champagne. He didn't post a victory lap. He simply dropped a short message on X, formerly Twitter. "They tried to bury me, didn't know I was a seed." And that was it. No dramatic press tour, no revenge song, just peace. The kind that comes only after walking through hell and still choosing to forgive. Because in the end, it wasn't about the court or the headlines or the so-called hidden camera. It was about a man fighting for his voice and getting it back, one truth at a time. And that's the story that left the courtrooms silent, the industry shaken, and the world reminded that even in the darkest moments, light always finds a way through. And just like that, y'all, the story that started as whispers in the dark has turned into a roar the whole world can't ignore. But the question still hangs in the air. What happens next? If this kind of power can twist justice for someone like Lil Durk, what does that mean for everyone else still trapped in the system with no cameras, no fans, no fame? Tell me in the comments, do you think Durk's story is the beginning of something bigger? Or was this all just another headline in a world addicted to drama? Because one thing's for sure, when truth starts to leak, it doesn't stop for anyone. If you've been riding with us through this storm, go ahead and hit that like button, smash that subscribe, and turn on the bell. Because this isn't the end, it's just the calm before the next explosion. We've got eyes on the next big expose, and trust me, when the next tape drops, you'll want to be the first to know. Until then, stay alert, stay curious, and remember, every story they try to bury only makes the truth grow louder.